Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us for today's IBM Tech Exchange webinar. I'd just like to go over a couple of housekeeping things before we begin. You should see a Q&A box towards the bottom of your screen where you can begin to submit any questions that you have for today's presenters. Later today, you'll be sent a link to the on-demand recording, a link to access the slides, and a link to the IBM Tech Exchange community where you can connect directly with our experts. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Raul and Brian.
Great. Thanks, Portia. Everyone, thanks for joining today. I'm looking forward to today's conversation, which is really focused around, what it can mean for existing users of SevOne products to take advantage of a trade-up opportunity there is to move to a new offer known as IBM SevOne Automated Network Observability. Now, one of the good things about this trade-up is that though this trade-up is designed for existing SevOne users, everything we're going to be talking about today applies to a new user as well in terms of their ability to take advantage of the capabilities of the platform and the value that it can bring. But when you hear us talk about trade up, right? Just we're talking mainly to existing SevOne users. So we're going to talk a little bit about some SevOne history and what SevOne customers are used to seeing in their space. But no matter where you're an existing SevOne user or if you're a new one, learning more about the software, the challenge that you have today, right? The desire is to drive a level of continuous network performance for your organization, so you can run the application, you can drive the application performance you need to drive the business, right? But if you take a step back and think about what's been thrown at you the last number of years, right? There's been shifts to hybrid cloud, shifts to SaaS, where a lot of the assets you're working with aren't always under your direct control. They live in other places, up in other clouds and other networks. The networks you do work with, right, are changing. Instead of being, I'll say set and forget types of networks, they're much more software defined and dynamic networks, which means sometimes getting the data around the performance of those networks is a little harder to get your hands on. And then on top of that, right, you're running into issues around labor shortages and the ability to find the right people who have the backgrounds to deal with both the networks of today and the networks of tomorrow. And what that's impacted teams with, right, engineering operations teams or networks, is they have levels of fragmented visibility and control, right? They can't always see everything they're working with, and on top of that, they have a difficult time being able to deal with the demands on them and need to try to do more with less. And it's driven the SevOne team here. What we're going to talk about today is how you can take advantage of more capable tooling to deal with some of that fragmented visibility and control, right? And the ability to use automation to achieve more by doing less. Now, a great place where I want to start is just a level set, right? For those here in the audience who have been with SevOne for a number of years, right? The majority of customers that came up through SevOne through the years are customers who, in this term, we're calling them legacy SevOne customers, those that came before the IBM acquisition. They license and consume software from SevOne and what I call an a la carte model, right? Where they would buy various modules and add on new feature and capability. So every SevOne customer that's out there today, legacy-wise, has something known as the SevOne NMS. It's the core part of the software. It's the piece that does the polling, the collection, any of the capabilities that we've talked about around baselining and alerting and setting up policies and and interacting of metric data across your environment. That's done with the SevOne NMS and was licensed by a term known as objects, which to give you a quick example, if you were managing a router or a switch, each port, each fan, each CPU, each interface, right, would be its own object. And customers would actually license the software based upon how many things they actually wanted to go monitor. If you have to take a step back and take that across the modules, right, the customers had a very very highly tuned ability to to get the type of data that they wanted and make sure they were paying exactly what for the value that they were getting for the particular things they were getting data from. Now, the difficulty of it is if you then go across the various modules, right? If I wanted flow data that came from the dedicated network collector, the DNC, and you license that by flow object. If you wanted hot standby, you then license that by object, and I'm not going to go down the list, but you can see it was a very a la carte model, very highly tuned for the set of value that folks want to get. And the model that we've moved to today inside of IBM is that the new IBM customers license all, when they license IBM SevOne, they get features and capabilities across the entire platform on a per device model, right? There's no counting of how much data is collected. And Raul, when I think about this, right, it's not uncommon, right, for us to get the question, why should one move to device-based pricing? Raul, I know we've got a few bullets here. Which one stands out to you the most as the reasons to move to device-based?
I mean, it's not because it's the first one on the list, but better visibility is one of the key areas for me. I mean, actually, later on, we're going to show some examples on why this is so important. But actually, I have lots of use cases, lots of situations when talking with customers saying, I have this problem. I don't see where the issue is. It's taking me weeks to fix the problem. If they could have more visibility of the network, they could manage to fix the issue instead of in weeks or even days, in hours or in minutes. And that's one of the reasons why we're offering this kind of, don't worry about the objects, get everything you need. Because if you manage to get everything you need, you're going to be much more efficient to find those issues. And again, instead of weeks to find the troubleshoot, the problem, it can take minutes or just hours to find the problem. The main thing is visibility. The most visibility you have of the network, the better or the easier for you to find where the issues are.
Yeah, it's one thing that if I'm looking, I'll say under the covers of the SevOne software, and say, hey, but what is SevOne really good at, right? Of course, the value that we have is we provide better visibility, but under the covers, we provide the ability for customers to go get the data that they want at the rate they want to go collect it. And folks, I want you to just take a step back and absorb that statement for a second, right? If you're looking across the industry of other folks, whether they're licensing by device or licensing by object, you don't get to do that, right? That it is SevOne has an ability to come in and say, hey, I want to get this every 5 minutes, but these, this part of the network, I want it every minute. And it becomes then a decision, not on, what do I do with my software, right? Or can the software do this? I mean, okay, well, let's go set the software up so that you can have that capability. And it might mean you deploy, an extra, SevOne peer in your network to make that kind of data collection happen. Make sure you've got the right collection and storage capabilities in your environment. But that becomes an implementation discussion, not a can I do this inside the software. And I think as Raul was saying, it gives you that much better visibility to it. If you then start collecting even more types of data, right? Not just metric data, start collecting flow data. The flow data is really, folks, that's where the magic of app-centric visibility begins to come from. And again, we don't limit, how many interfaces you're going to be collecting data from, in terms of licensing it to you differently, right? If you have a device-based license of IBM SevOne, you can go get the metric and flow data coming from those devices. That if you have that richer visibility, you have the easier troubleshooting. You've got additional capabilities around integration with to publish out metric data, so you can share your data across a range of systems in the organization, and really have your approach to network observability be seen as leading your IT integration across a range of platforms, so every tool is working with the same set of data, and it then just helps overall your ability to make decisions being based upon consistent data. The last couple of points to think about device space beyond those big ones we've talked about is the you end up having this less limitations put on top of you, right? If it wasn't uncommon, right, for folks if you're used to the object-based pricing, you would have to go through a purchasing type of process internally to go get more licenses if you didn't have enough buffer room built into initial purchase. And on this side, it becomes more about forecasting out the number of devices you want to monitor as opposed to the types of and how much data you're getting from those devices. So it's really a big paradigm shift that way.
Actually, Brian,
I
have lots of use cases. I have lots of conversations with existing customers, and we always end up talking about how useful this kind of moving from object-based to device-based licenses. One that stands out is an interesting one. It was a customer that wanted to monitor the cloud. And the thing is that we're talking is, I don't know how to monitor the cloud because yes, I know how to monitor instances, but then in terms of connectivity of networks, how can you monitor the cloud because you don't have switches or routers or anything like that? The thing is that this customer still had the object-based way of thinking. So I'm thinking that I have objects, I'm limited to objects, I don't know what to monitor, so I'm going to just pick and choose very carefully what I want to monitor. What they didn't realize is that they already were in the device-based license. So you don't need to worry about what to monitor. It's just as much as we can. And with the solutions that we have out of the box for AWS, for Azure, we tell you, out of the box, we discover everything that you can monitor, and you don't have to worry about the objects. NAT gateways, transit gateways, VPNs, direct connects, the load balancers, any kind of load balancer. So this customer, once they realize, hey, I don't have to worry, just plug and play, discover everything I have, not only the VMs or anything like that, but everything I have, you have this peace of mind that everything that is relevant is going to be monitored, and you don't need to worry about what is being monitored because it doesn't go against your object-based license. Monitor as many things as you discover for your devices. So that was very, very neat.
No, it makes it really is a mind shift, for the longtime SevOne, or you could use the term legacy customer here. The ability to move can be really helpful. So if you're interested in moving, right, it is get in touch with your SevOne rep. They can begin to work with you, help you understand. And as they begin to work with you, right, the part of the opportunity, really becomes the ability to expand even more some of the capability that we have around this trade up. And the trade up is really I'll call it a two-part trade up. There's a level of automation that comes with the system, and we'll definitely be walking through some key pieces around automation for you today, and the value of automation, what it means to network performance, and what it can mean overall to automation of your environment. And the second thing is around this notion of network observability, right? As you have an observability mindset, right? If you begin to shift yourself away from, okay, what data do I go get versus I need this data, to have better visibility. It shifts your mindset into the world of observability as opposed to just let me go collect data. So this overall, this network observability approach gets you everything that you knew about before, right? But then gets you a new low-code, no-code automation engine that starts you off with 10 workflows. And we'll talk to you more about what a workflow is, and we'll help you understand that a little bit better as we go forward. But you then have this ability more. It's like, okay, why should I then trade up, right? You can trade up because, right, you can visualize more. As we talk about more, you're moving from to a device-based model. You can collect from more device types. You can then begin to automate remediation, right, and drive a path to zero downtime. And you'll hear us talk about turning insights into actions, right? The ability SevOne has to say, hey, this isn't normal. Oh, well, let me go and try and fix this thing, right? And we'll walk you through some of the predefined workflows that the team, and I know Rules had a big piece in helping to pull those pieces together. So we'll give you some more insight on, no pun there, we'll give more insight on it. But it also then begins, and we'll talk a little bit more about democratizing automation, right? Using some really easy to use workflows that helps to enable automation to be used across a range of teams now, not just in some siloed piece of those who really know how to drive in certain scripting types. That overall, we believe that we've seen the ability to accelerate time to value, right? If you actually want to drive in levels of automation, there isn't that you don't have to learn all these sets of APIs along the way. You can use, we'll show you levels of some of the out of the box building blocks that come with the system. That overall, right, if you begin to put these things together, you have increased visibility with the ability then to drive increased consistency of integration of the data and the automation from that data set across your landscape.
Actually, before you move there, Brian, actually, I have another story with one of the customers.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when you talk with customers about how you can do things and so on, obviously, SevOne, we solve lots of problems out of the box. If you want to monitor devices using SMP or NetFlow or Metric2Flow, we have lots of functionalities. But obviously, we don't cover 100% of the use cases that the customers have. That's why one of the main questions that customers ask to us, as well as any other company out there, is that, do you guys have an API? And we have a very good API. We have a very well-documented API, very easy to use, and so on. So the typical situation that we have is actually 2 weeks ago, I was talking with a customer about some kind of Wi-Fi solution, how they can enhance the way they're monitoring Wi-Fi. And we're talking, yes, this thing that you want to do, yes, we can do it with the API. And yes, you can do it with the API. And the thing that pretty much everything they wanted to do, it could be done with the API. The problem is that, say, yes, it's good that we have the API, but at the end, they don't do anything because they're so busy doing some of the stuff. Maybe they don't know how to use Python or some other scripting language. They're not so used to use Ansible, for example. So what they told me they do is, every time I have a requirement, I have to send it to this other team, that is the developer team, that they will review the requirements, try to build it, and so on. It's too long. It takes too long. At the end, we ended up not doing anything, and we don't do automation because even though the APIs are there, it's so difficult to do it because we don't have the skills internally to develop our own scripts. When they told me that, I say, look, I have exactly what you know. What would you think if I could tell you that you can create your own automations, your own scripts without scripting? And this is exactly what we are offering here. The ability to do all those things that today you are not doing because it takes too long, it's such a big pain that you don't have time for that. Now you can do it. And it's because we are allowing you, just using building blocks, and I will show you later, creating those automations by yourself. You don't need to rely on anyone. You define the requirements, you do it yourself, and in hours or maximum in days, you will have the automations you need to fix anything that you have in the network, all the use cases that Brian was mentioning before, the closed loop automation, collecting more data, any of the use cases. Now you will be empowered to do the automations by yourself. So it's going to be very cool.
It feeds really well into this next this layered topic here, right? Is if you look at the slide, that the 95% of the slide are the things that you know about SevOne today that you have, right? The ability to go get pulled metrics, to get flow data, across the range of the network domain that you're responsible for. This trade up now brings a handful of very capable and valuable sets of feature sets around automation. So the ability to automate actions, the ability to drive closed loop automation, and the ability to have a self-service API-based data integration. So if there's a new device type, a new set of data you want to bring into the system, and that isn't supported yet by the SevOne team, let's say it's a non-SNMP type of based system, you will, I don't think we're going to show that part of the demo today, but the same type of capability, right, for you to go and build your own workflows against that, those new data sets are there, and help bridge that gap, so you can have, you can provide the values you've known of SevOne, right, for a number of years inside the entire system itself. I'm going to spend a few minutes to help, I'll say just broaden your thinking a bit, right, about this new automation capability that is now with SevOne, but also, I'm going to walk you through some things we've done, how to help automate SevOne functions or automate functions based on SevOne data. We're also going to walk you through a little bit of, begin to think even broader, right, beyond just around the SevOne data. And the first place I think is important to start is to think about, how is automation done today, right? Automation done today, typically that we've seen is done in silos across organizations, right? And the teams use the technologies that they're familiar with, right? Might be Perl, Java, Python, JavaScript, all fine and functional and functional ways of getting things done. The difficulty that it can bring is that it does bring levels of increased complexity when different teams are using different ways of doing automation, and does lead to oftentimes a dependency on freeware and supportability of the environment, and leaving levels of skill gaps along the way. And what we're looking to do and begin to think about, right, is what if you could achieve more and do less, right, by normalizing automation, by amplifying the existing automation folks already have, right? The automation folks have been doing it, I'll say, is very functional ways of doing it, but now you have in a way that you can provide a governance model on top of those automations you have, amplify the automations you already have, and then make it that much easier, right, for you to go build more automation in. And we'll walk you through as we get into the demonstration of what this begins to look like, right? But begin to think, this isn't just some new way to do automation. This is a way to make it easier to normalize automation across your organization by leveraging the automation you have and making it that much easier to create new automation across your landscape.
Actually, Brian,
go ahead. Oh, no, absolutely.
Something I love is when you say normalize automation, because for me, it's like two different things. One is normalize the process of user automation, because normally when you talk with customers, they have a bunch of scripts running everywhere. And once that person that was managing the script goes on holidays or leave for another company, it's a nightmare to manage that script. So that's the first thing. You can have somewhere where you can normalize the process of executing or onboarding new automation. But the other note as well that it makes a lot of sense for me in terms of normalized automation is make automation normal. At the moment, as mentioned, it's a pain that every time you have to do some kind of automation, I have to rely with this team, talk to these guys, do this, do that. Look, forget it, I'll do it manually. Yes, it's going to take 2 days of my week doing this, but it's better than doing it the other way. If you can make automation a normal thing, something easy to use, an everyday thing, it's going to make your life much, much easier. That's why this normalized automation, I love it.
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it. Look at the reverse side of it. You're right. First, I'll say, think about now 2 steps of automation or 2 different styles of automation, right? The first is you as a SevOne customer. How can automation help me with my SevOne data? We'll show you some examples here on the next slide about ways that you can automate actions based on the machine learning observations that the system already does. We'll give you some examples of the ability to reduce sets of repetitive tasks that it takes you to just operate your network, right? And I'll say change SMB community strings as an example. And then I did mention this one a little bit earlier, the ability to leverage a self-service, API-based data ingestion to help make sure that if you get something new in your network, that you can actually gather the data and make it part of your observability type of solution. So, in this section, what I encourage you to do is any of the links that are here on these slides, link directly into the IBM community. Inside the IBM community for SevOne, you'll see each of these workflows these are sets of predefined templates that show you how you can use automation directly in your system based upon insights that come in. Now, Raul, I know that you've been close to these. Which one of, not that's your quote your favorite, but what one stands out to you in some of the insights?
It's so difficult to choose one, and again, not because it's the first one, but the first one of actionable QoS policies possibly is the one that when we're reviewing this with the customer, possibly is one of the automations that saved more time to the customer. And it's because it was taking so long to configure QoS policies manually, just reviewing the data, analyzing the data, and then making the changes, that automating that process, they save them, I don't know, I mean, how many hours, weeks, or even months of work hours they saved it. So they are, depending on the use case, depending on what your pain is, there's going to be possibly better options. But for me, that one, because it saves so much time to the customer, is one of my preferred ones.
Yeah, and so one of the ways to look at, as you get more familiar with this, is that these workflow templates, they give you a head start, help you understand, hey, how are these pulled together? How would this fit inside my environment? And let you tweak, let you add, and make the integration, the automation the way that you need it to work. The second class, right, that also has its own an additional set of automations is around helping you reduce sets of repetitive tasks across your environment. So in this one, I know this, there's got to be one here, Raul, that jumps out to you. Which one? You want to talk about?
You could see several times the CMD integration. In this case, we talk about ServiceNow, because it's such a common thing. And again, the problem is that if you need to rely with other teams, you know that you can integrate SevOne with CMDB systems like ServiceNow or any other, but you don't really know the capabilities. Once you start creating the workflow by yourself and seeing so easy what are the options, what are the attributes, what are the metrics that you can integrate, it expands the automation that you wanted to do. At the beginning, I just wanted to integrate these two attributes. Now that I can see that is bidirectional, I can get this data from SevOne into ServiceNow, but also get the data from ServiceNow into SevOne. So that's one of the main kind of automations that everyone is willing to use. Now with this solution, it's not only that we make it easier and faster to do it, we enhance, we expand the possibilities, because now it's much easier for anyone to understand how it works and what the capabilities are.
Yeah, and I'll say, and on top of that, right, if I think about, a ServiceNow type integration, one of the biggest values that, we can make it a lot easier to get it done. But if a week later you want something else, you can go to the building block, make the adjustment, and off you go, right? It's not yet another big project that you need to involve multiple peoples and teams with. You have levels of ability and control within for you to define, I'll say, almost in the same way, right? That you would go in and say, what data do I want to collect from my devices? And now it becomes, what data do I want to begin to automate into other activities and share between systems? It just gives you that much level of flexibility and control over the use of your data across the IT landscape. And then finally, we've mentioned this a couple times already about the self-service data API. Right? This really helps give you an extra step of control and security to know that, for those who've been around SevOne for years, one of the hallmarks since I think the beginning of SevOne founding, right, was if you had a new S&P device in your system, basically you would ring up the support team, and within 10 business days they would actually pull together the right level of manageability for that new device. That still lives there in the world of S&P. But as we were talking earlier about some of the new challenges, a lot of the software-defined devices out there today, they may have some S&P, but it may just give you a limited visibility of the system. Oftentimes you need API visibility to the systems, and that's where this flexibility comes in. That if that system isn't built into the SevOne software yet, you can begin to go get some of the data yourself and provide levels of visibility and help fill those gaps that you have as your network grows and changes around you. So just another good thing to keep in mind. Okay, so this, we've walked through a bit for you on some of the values of the data that can be automated based upon the insights you get with SevOne, the help them reduce repetitive tasks and the self-source data API integration. Now begin to think a little bigger, right? That you can now automate even more, right? What Raul and I have been talking about the last 15 minutes or so has just been about the network infrastructure and the NPM systems, right? And how to use a low-code automation system and API gateways and range of automation features to drive the normalization and leveraging automation and providing that level of governance just for network observability automation. But begin to think about what you can do across other domains inside the IT landscape, work across IT teams to begin to have levels of use cases around what's happening in security, what's happening in public cloud, fault management, ITSM. Any stories that you've seen that since we've have brought this capability out, Raul, that jump out to you as we move down this?
We have so many. I mean, just maybe to mention a couple of them. One is, as you mentioned, not only NPM solutions, we are also coming to the application monitoring solutions. We have, for example, Instana, or it could be any of the other APM solutions in the market as well. You detect that there is something not working fine. Let's talk about, imagine a Kubernetes environment. You realize that there are some problems, some capacity problems. Just send a message to our automation solution to automatically scale up or scale down that Kubernetes environment, adding more or less pods. Something very simple. Or maybe we can talk about security environments. Imagine that you have, let's say, QRadar, for example, or it could be any other DCM solutions that detects that there is a specific IP that is generating out of malicious traffic. Well, send a note to our automation tool to automatically block that IP address. And the thing is that all these things that you mentioned, yes, these are automations. Now you can do it because once you have the solution and you can drag and drop the blocks to automatically block the IP or to scale up, scale down, or anything you want to do, now you have the power to do everything you need in a few minutes/hours. Because now you have the power to do all these automations by yourself without Python knowledge or Ansible knowledge or any of the other automation languages that are out there.
Yeah, and it's a really a good segue as you talk about not having to think and worry about how something's pulled together, right? What kind of automation language it is. You'll see here in a few minutes as Raul jumps into the demonstration, the much more modern approach the system has with levels of building blocks for you to begin to stitch together the automations that you need to take place and do it all across that single system as a secure management layer for automation across your landscape. We've mentioned a few times this notion of building blocks, right? And this is a very quick slice, right, across a range of domains of the types of automation building blocks that are available, right? There are thousands of these out-of-the-box building blocks across the IT landscape, from application security to infrastructure, performance, cloud, ITSM systems that let you begin to drive data that you have across to and through these tools and enable you to drive one additional, I'll say not just one, multiple levels of consistency across your IT landscape through the use of automation across the system. I think with that, I know we've given a pretty good picture, right, to the team of how do these things fit in. It feels time now, Raul, for you to say that, okay, this isn't just slideware, this is real, and let's jump in and see a demo.
Perfect, that's great. So let me first of all share my screen, and hopefully everyone can see my screen now. Yes. So first of all, before I start showing you how this really looks like in a real environment, I wanted to highlight again that everything that we've mentioned, all these workflows, are already available in our community. So if you go here to our community, go to the AI of section 7 NPM, you can go to the library and you can download any of those existing. We have much more than what we've showed. We have, as you can see here, 42 at the moment workflows that you can download. And also very important, we also have the blog section. And I'm highlighting that because today, one of the use cases I want to cover is this blog that we have here. a real story on why the trade-up is an interesting option. In this case, we're going to talk about a customer that had object-based license. They were constraining a lot the way they monitoring the network, and how doing the upgrade and the trade-up helped them to solve the issue that they couldn't detect what it was, and actually also solve the problem. So it's actually here, so you guys can have a look. But let's go and see the actual information. So before you do that, I'm going to talk about two different environments. I have this environment here. It's an environment where we have object-based license. Okay? And in this environment, we are monitoring lots of different devices, but we are restricting a lot the objects that we are monitoring. Why? Because we have, I don't know, maybe 500,000 objects licensed that we can monitor. We have a few thousand devices, and we have to limit the number of objects that we are monitoring because we don't have enough licenses. And that could be okay in some devices, but when you have some kind of more complex devices, let's talk about firewalls, load balancers, for example, the F5, that the number of objects that we need to monitor, it can grow quite a lot. However, if we have the limitation, because we have the object-based license, let's go, for example, to one of the load balancers here, you can see that at the moment we're monitoring 113 objects. And this is becoming a problem because, as I showed you before, and that real use case, one of the customers, they had issues with the load balancers. Sometimes the connections were disconnecting, they couldn't reach the applications, and they couldn't see why. And the problem is that they were monitoring the typical CPU, memory, disk, and traffic on the load balancers, but nothing else. Why? Because they restricted a lot the number of objects that they could monitor. If you compare this installation with another installation where we have device-based license and we are monitoring everything we want, in this case in the load balancers, let's go to this one. This is a different installation. This is a device-based license installation. Let's go to the London device. As you can see, the same device here, we have 346 objects. We have much more, almost 3 times the same, the amount of objects on the other one. Okay, what's the difference between one of them? Well, if we go back here, you know that you could go to the object manager and have a look to see what are the issues, the performance of the objects. That's the old way to see the information. If you have device-based license, 100% sure you're going to have Data Insight. Data Insight is the new reporting engine that allows you to visualize everything in a much, much easier way. So instead of having to go around all these objects one by one seeing the information, just jump into Data Insight, load up the F5 report, and now you can see here, let's go to the London device, all the information displayed in a much, much nicer way. It's not only nicer, it's also much more efficient. So now here I can see, I have a lot of information available. CPU, memory, disk, and traffic, 100%. This is granted. But also we have hardware status, SSL profiles, global connections, virtual server address, pool members, nodes. Everything that is important on that device will be monitored. And this is, as Brian mentioned, one of the functionalities, one of the main features that we have in SevOne, that is device certification. Based off in our almost 20 years of experience working hand by hand with the customers, we know what is important for them. So if you tell us that you have an F5 device, we already know what is important for you. We already know what you need to monitor. That's why we have built the certification to make sure that all those metrics that are important for you are captured out of the box. And because now you have device-based license, you can monitor as many objects as you need. Now you will have a complete view of what's going on the network. And actually here, this information that I didn't have before because we were not monitoring this object, because we had to limit the objects because we had object-based license, now have visibility that something not normal is happening. Let's go actually to pool members. And now I'm going to have the ability to drill down and understand what the problem is. So actually, let's go to pool members because I saw that we have an alert trigger in this case. And yeah, I can see that the number of connections in some of our pool members is higher than others. Let's see here with the comparison. Another of the functionalities that we have in SevOne, you know that even if you have object-based license, you can create some custom metrics, okay? Any metric that you want to create, combining other metrics that you're collecting, you can create it. The problem is that when you create a new, it's called cross-object calculation object, it's a new object that you're creating, meaning more licenses that you need. If you have device-based license, you can create as many cross-object calculation objects that you need. In this case, what we're doing is comparing the percentage of connections for each of the pool members that we have. And I can see that this one, for example, has much higher connections at some points with the others. Okay, how do we troubleshoot this? Well, what we could do is troubleshoot this metric. Let's go to this metric in particular, that is the one that we have in issues, with the other issues that we're having on this device. And something that I've noticed, and let's go to the load balancer as well, is that we were having issues with the TMM memory. Another metric that most of the people that are constraints on the object-based license don't monitor, because I have the normal memory. I don't want to see the TMM memory, that is the traffic management module, if I remember correctly, and they don't monitor that one. Another object that I feel that is not important. It's very important. And actually, you will see here why this is so important, because when you put both metrics together, you can see that this issue with the connections is happening when the TMM memory is spiking up. So as you can see, when you don't have all the visibility that you need in your network, it's going to take much, much longer to detect where the issue is. In this case, our customer that was object-based, they didn't know. They had this ongoing issue for months and months, and they couldn't see where the issue was. Once we do the trade-up and use device-based license, we have visibility of everything. We have visibility of this. We configure the alerts. We realize that we have an issue here. After a few days after they changed the license to device-based, we realized where the issue is, and we fixed it. Now the question would be, how did you fix this? Because obviously what we can do is, okay, manually can see that we have an issue with the TMM memory. So maybe you restart the pool member or restart some kind of service in the F5 device, and that can fix the issue. That's fine. But what we mentioned before, the problem is that this can happen at any time. And maybe what happens is that it happens in the middle of the night. It generates some outage in the middle of the night that until you don't realize when you wake up in the morning that this is what happened, and then you manually fix it, it's going to take a few hours of some kind of outage. The question here is, how can I automate this resolution? And this is what we're talking before, Brian, that people don't do it, don't automate these resolutions or automations because they don't know how to do it. Or they know how to do it, but they don't have the bandwidth to do it. They have to rely on other teams. Basically, it's too complex. Look, if it's 2 hours downtime, okay, I will wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. I receive a message saying that this happened again, and I will wake up to fix the issue. How can we keep you sleeping? How can we help you with your sleep? Let's automate this. But how do we do it? Very simple. Just come here, come to Rapid Network Automation, that is part of the trade-up, and just create an automation. But imagine this situation. Okay, I know that F5, again, they have an API, but how do I use it? I don't know Python. I don't know the API. How can I create the automation? Very, very simple. Just let me go here to my section. Let's create a new workflow. And this fix F5 TMM issue, for example. Let's put the name, and let's create it. So what is the first thing I have to do? Well, let's see the options that I have for F5. As you can see here, we have lots of integrations. All this comes out of the box. And if you have an API, a vendor that is not certified, we don't have the integration, in less than 15 days, we will certify for you, free of charge. So as long as you have this product, any API, we can integrate it. Most of them are out of the box integrated. If there is something new, 15 days, we'll do it. So let's go to the F5. I have my LTM devices. And then here, what do I need to do? Well, I know that I need, let's say that I need to reset or I need to modify some virtual server. Let's go to virtual, and I can see here everything that I can do. At the end of the day, what they're doing here is that every single API endpoint, every single API action that we can do, in this case with F5, it has been documented, it has been, as you can see here, integrated. So if, for example, we want to get the list of virtual servers, the only thing I have to do is drag and drop. Now from here, if I manage to, I don't have any F5 instance, but if I have an F5 instance, I could put here the integration, so basically the authentication to connect to this system. And if I run this, it will give me the list of all the virtual servers that I have. Okay, I don't want to fix all the virtual servers. I just want to fix one in particular. No problem. let's go through all these virtual servers. And if I find the one I need, in that case, what I will do is patch the virtual servers, come here and fix it. What can I patch? Well, again, you don't need to know anything. Just come here, and this will tell you everything you can do on that virtual server. So when we say that you don't need to learn the API, it means that our solution has done that for you. When we say that we have these 15 days to certify, to integrate the vendor, this is what we do. We review all the API actions that are available. We codify them for you. We review what data comes in and what data comes out. So it makes it very, very simple for you to do it. So now what I had to do is that for each, what I'm going to do is that the result that comes from this action, F5.1, that actually I can change the name. For example, get virtual servers. Now you can see that this get virtual servers dot result dot items. I'm going to go through all these items, and when I see an item that has the same name, for example, that the one that is generating the issue, that would be for all the members that I have on this list, check the name. And if this name is equal to whatever I passed before, name of virtual server, in that case, what we're going to do is just modify here. So something as complex as, based on detecting there is some issue on F5, automate the resolution, that if we think about doing it by ourselves using Python or Ansible, we are talking about weeks or even longer to do it, that as it takes so long, say, look, let's not do it. I'll do it manually. I will wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning. Instead of doing now now I have the option to, in minutes, because you can see here that in minutes, I managed to create this workflow. Now you can automate this action, and you don't need to wake up at 3 a.m. from the a.m. in the morning. Just create this action workflow in minutes. Okay, you want to make it nicer and so on, it can take a few hours, but we're talking about hours. We are not talking about days. We're not talking about weeks. We're talking that now you can wake up fresh in the morning because you don't have to wake in the middle of the night, because you have automated the resolution of these actions. And this is just a single example of things that we can do. As you can see here, we have so many integrations with Kubernetes environments, with hyperscalers like AWS, Azure, IBM Cloud, with vendors like Cisco DNAC or F5 or Checkpoint or FortiGate, with Aruba, with everything. As long as you have an API that you can connect with and automate actions, we can do it here. And don't think only about APIs. We can connect with SSH. We can connect with text files like JSON, CSV, XML, everything. Any kind of automation that you need, but you are not doing because it's going to take too long, this solution will help you to implement them. All of them.
I tell you, Raul, when I here listening and having you demonstrate what's going on here, it just points out to me it's such a blend of rich capability with flexibility around what things do I want to automate, add it in, tweak it, right? And the example we're given earlier of yes, you can go and automate things, but you can go back at any point in time and begin to tweak and adjust, right? And then make these automations available to to your entire IT organization, right? It's a matter of almost taking a step back and thinking, okay, what could I automate with this, right? Start with the things that matter, right? But then a chance to build and grow from there. So it becomes, I'll say, very powerful that way. April, as you were going along, Zahir had one of the participants today had a question to come in. And it was, the question is some of the core of SevOne around the insights. We've been spending a lot of time here talking about the actions, right? The automations. So here I had a question around the insight piece of it. I'm going to read it to you. It focused around a question around real-time monitoring and alerting, right? As many applications are moving and driving towards streaming data. And the need for real-time monitoring and alerting is critical. Can you give some insights on how SevOne approaches that type of monitoring?
Absolutely. The thing is that one of the main questions that we have with customers is like, look, we have the network very well monitored, and actually let me just show you a report here. Let's go to the typical network performance report that have a complete view of what's going on in the network. Which are the alert situations, which are the devices generating more alerts, what are the main KPIs, latency, utilization, QoS, all these things. But there is a big disconnect between what this shows you and what people want. Because when I start troubleshooting the network, it's not because I know that there is an issue in the network. What I know, the first thing, is that there is an issue with the application. I know that I'm having an issue with this Microsoft Teams or this HR portal or this CRM solution. I'm having an issue accessing that application. The APM solution is telling me that there is no problem. Maybe the problem is with the network. So how can I do that? Well, the thing is that to have very quick insight of what's going on the network, but from an application point of view, what we can use is solutions like NetFlow. NetFlow will give us all these information, all these, which kind of applications are running through the network. Once you have this information that you can see here, then it's okay, based on this, what network elements are impacting that application. And if, for example, someone is complaining that we're having issues with accessing, I don't know, BBC, we can select the BBC application here, and this will tell me if there is any network element impacting that application. We can see here where it's being discovered, and we can see that, no, look, everything is fine. There is no problem. What about Microsoft Teams? Well, Microsoft Teams, I come here, detect where it's running, and based on where it's running, where we have discovered this application, see if there is any issues on that section of the network. And here we can see that, yeah, we're having issues with one of the devices. So as you can see, having this visibility helped us speeding up the troubleshooting process, but we have a problem, as we mentioned before. If you're still having the object-based license, that means that you are restricted on the amount of interfaces where you can monitor NetFlow. However, if you're using the device-based license, that means that you can monitor as many interfaces, as much NetFlow as you want. Meaning that you can have a complete view of what's going on your network, discovering every single application going through your network, and then match that with the issues that you have in the network and be able to troubleshoot where the issue is. Actually, in this case, it's telling me that we're having issues with a specific QoS class that is having drops, and then we could troubleshoot and see that, yeah, because we are generating too much traffic on that particular QoS class, that's making the bandwidth go over the limit. That's why we're having the issue. This that here looks so easy because we have all the information we need in a single report. If you don't have this ability to monitor everything, and also the ability to have this kind of application-centric network performance report, it will take you, again, days or even weeks to solve the problem.
All right, Raul, thanks on that. I think that you really helped answer that question. First, I hear that another one just came in about because they've just moved to device-based licensing, right? Mm-hmm. And recognizing that, you know, as we go in, and I'm going to paraphrase the question a little bit, Ricky, as you put it in, Ricky, is it makes it really possible, right, to exceed the I'll say the specifications for an image that you've deployed of a SevOne peer. Can you talk about, you know, what device-based licensing means in that type of scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is that once you open up, you have now device-based license, and you want to monitor everything. Obviously, our appliances, our virtual appliances, have a specific limit of objects that we can monitor, so it starts filling up. For Rick, in this case, I would like to take this offline because depending on how you configure the appliances, there are a few ways to remove that limit. For example, if you're using KVM images because you are running in OpenStack or in your cloud, there is a way just to change in a few parameters to increase the capacity of your appliances. Also, there is another way to, instead of focusing on the number of objects, what you can do is focus on the number of indicators per second in order to limit the size of the appliances. So there are different ways. So we would like to talk with Ricky after this call. But yeah, definitely this is a real example. Once you open up, you don't have the restriction. You will want to consume more and more data. So you will want to deploy more appliances to make sure that everything that you need is captured in your environment. Because remember, at the end is that more visibility, I'm going to be more efficient, more effective to detect issues. So I'm going to detect issues faster, and I'm going to be able to either avoid outages or to reduce the time of the outages from days or weeks to minutes or hours. That's the value that we are selling here.
Yeah. So Ricky, we'll touch base with you. We'll get your contact information. We'll reach out to you with particulars, because the one of the big things about the shift to device based is that you're not limited. You actually can deploy another image. There's not an extra licensing charge, right? So you know there's things you can tweak within the instance you have, and then there's things you can do that you could add another peer in. But we'll have whether Raul or someone else in the team will get back with you to make sure we understand the question directly and work from there. All right. I know we're getting close to I'll give you about 5 minutes left in the hour. Is there any last questions that for folks to come in?
Everyone is so excited about this option that they don't have more questions.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
get the bill.
So I think the just to summarize as we go through, right? I think there's really 2 steps for folks to begin to think about. The first is we talked today about the value of device-based licensing. If you're not device-based licensing, reach out to your SevOne team. They can work with you about how to begin to make that type of transition so you can drive the value. And then the second is as part of that discussion as well, right? Or if you're already device-based, is look to trade up to SevOne automated network observability, right? To be able to harness all the power you've had with SevOne, right? Of providing those insights, right? The automated baselining is an example of know what's normal and what's not in your environment, and then begin to drive actions across the environment, right? Really there to help you and the teams across the IT landscape, right? To accelerate mean time to resolution, to reduce the time to market it takes to roll out new services, to drive levels of consistency across your administration control and how you're sharing information. That this level of the ability to we use the term democratize automation, really then helps to increase automation, security, and compliance right across your organization, because you're working off a single platform that that enables more teams to get directly involved in, as opposed to having automation silos that need to be broken down across the team. And instead of having teams focus on particular sets of resources that can do automation, it just opens the value up overall across the entire IT stack, right? And make sure that you can then turn as I say, insights into actions across the environment. All right, just checking. We have any last questions? I think we're good. Raul, any last thoughts of the day?
No, I mean, I'm very excited with this possibility, because one of the main complaints that we had with customers is that, first of all, I have limited visibility of the network. And secondly, once I detect the issue, how do I fix it? With this trade-up, we fix both issues. First is that now you don't have restriction. You can monitor as many objects, as much net flow as you need. And secondly, once you detect the issue, we can automate the resolution. So basically, we can manage the whole life cycle of detecting the issue, identifying the issue, fixing the issue.
Great. All right, well, folks, again, thanks for joining in. If you came in live, thanks for the questions. If you're watching this on replay, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we'll make sure we get you back as soon as possible. All right, thanks, everybody.